Hello, this is the fourth tutorial in the Soda Can tutorial series. In this tutorial we will be setting up a light setup for our can for our final render. Now before we start, I want to explain something called a linear workflow. What that is whenever you're lighting your scene and you're using lights in Maya, it's set to something different in here. It's essentially a color management system, and it's set backwards, and essentially what's happening is when you set up your lights and you're rendering, you're not seeing how it would actually, how the lights aren't acting as they would in real life. So the linear workflow takes a couple steps, and you have to go through a little bit more technical parts of Maya. So we're just gonna skip that right now and light it using the default color management system in Maya. You can look that up on your own. It's not very hard. It's just a little bit time consuming. So, but it yields a lot better, more realistic and accurate result. Although it takes a little bit longer to set up your lights, it looks ultimately better. The first thing we need to do is make sure that our can is the right size to be lit so that it looks correct in a real, so it looks like it's in a real world environment. And just from looking up online, I know that a typical soda can is 11, around 11 centimeters tall. We can measure this by jumping into our side view here and coming up here to go to create, measure tool, distance tool, and you want to click your first point right about where the top is. Click your second point right down here where the bottom is. See, we can jump in here and move this with our move tool. If it's not totally accurate. Yeah, that looks about right. What we're going to do here now is set this ruler here to down to 11 centimeters. So that's how big our can should be, right around here. Alright, so let's jump into our outliner. Let's highlight everything that our can is made of, which would be all this stuff here. Let's hit Control G for group. I'm going to go ahead and, if you hold down D, come to your side view, hold down D, it allows you to move your axis. Let me do it in here, you can see it better. I just want to move my axis to the very bottom. If you hold down D, it allows you to do that. While you're holding D, you can move your axis, and this is moving the axis for the group, not the individual objects. Now that that's there, we can go ahead and, okay, see I lost my selection, but to select everything in an upwards hierarchy, in other words, this part of the can is in a hierarchy with this part of the can. If I just push up, well, with one of those selected, it'll select everything in my hierarchy, and you can select up the hierarchy, select multiple subgroups. Now I'm going to switch to my scale tool with the whole entire group selected. I'm going to scale this down to around 11 inches. Let's see. That looks about right. Alright, now we can select this ruler and delete it. Select everything in the hierarchy again. Let's pull this all the way up to where it's on flat on the grid. Okay. Now that our can's the right size, something you might notice is that this texture, once we do a render, it's going to be hard to get a lot of the detail within the camera's view. So what we can go ahead and do is just for the render alone, we're going to scale in this texture so that more of it fits on the can. You'll see what I mean. So let's select this bit and come up here to Window, go to UV Texture Editor. Let's right click in here and select our UVs. Select them all. Switch to your scale tool and scale it out. You see what it's doing here? It's pushing it inwards, it's stretching it inwards, causing some overlap. Let's do it to about right here. This looks good. Now we can kind of see more of detail. We'll be able to see more of the can in the render. Now back here you'll see that we have some overlap. That's typically in a real world studio scenario that wouldn't be good to have, but we're only going to be rendering the front of the can, so in this case it's going to be okay. 3D is the art of deception. Alright, so let's build a ramp now for the background, for essentially what will be the background of our render. So let's come up here to create EP curve tool. Some people like to use the CV curve tool. I like the EP curve tool personally. So let's click somewhere around right here. What we're going to do is build a ramp so that we have a real smooth transition into the background. Let's start somewhere like right here. Make sure you click a couple of points. They don't need to be perfectly accurate. We'll fix that later. Okay, now start to build this upwards. You can click and move around so you can really place your points correctly. Build it just how you want. That'll probably work just fine. Go ahead and hit enter to complete it. Right click and select your control vertexes. Select all these here at the bottom. Let's scale them down so that they're flat. Maybe pull them up a little. Let's grab these. Well, these. Let's scale these in to make sure they're flat. Okay. Okay, I kind of built this sideways, so I'm just gonna select object mode, select the curve, and rotate it. Well, I need to use my discrete rotate. Make sure that I rotate exactly 90 degrees. Alright, let's pull that over here. Push Control D for duplicate. Pull the other half over here. Now let's select them both. Come up here to surfaces. Click loft. That ended up pretty much in the middle, which is perfect. From right here we can kind of scale this out because it'll probably need to be a bit bigger. We can go ahead and come in here and delete these curves. We don't need those. Or hide them, depending on however you want to do it. Let's see. Right here we could select these control vertexes and pull them out more. Give us more room. Okay. Now we're going to create a camera and go ahead and get it in place. So let's go up here to create camera. And now the camera is selected. So we can come up here and say look through selected. Kind of pull ourselves out here. Okay. Let's go ahead and turn on our resolution gate. I'm going to kind of push this ramp out backwards a little bit. Give us more background room. I'm going to go ahead and, if I say select camera, it'll select the camera I have that I'm looking through currently. Let's come over here to the channel box editor. And under focal length, we're going to click this and then we'll middle mouse click in here. Let's turn that down. What this is going to do is add some interesting perspective to our shot. Now that we've done that, let's zoom in and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so now we've added some interesting perspective, so let's kind of pull it down. This worked really well for either an overhead shot, kind of like this. And you'll see this done a lot in magazine ads and commercials. or down here. They both look pretty good. I'm going to do an underlying shot. Okay, now let's see, we've got background showing. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this back a little bit towards the camera. Might as well go ahead and scale it outwards as far as we need it. Now that everything's looking pretty set up, see, I don't want to accidentally select this because that can get kind of annoying when I'm trying to select things and I'm accidentally selecting it too. Let's come into the attribute editor with it selected. Come down here to drawing overrides. This will be under object display, drawing overrides. Let's click enable overrides. Display type reference. Now you won't see anything change, but now when you try to select it in your viewport, you won't be able to. You can still come into your outliner and select it here. So switching to this outliner view took me out of my camera. You can get back into it by coming up here and clicking panel, perspective, camera 1. The camera is essentially where we want it, so to make sure we don't mess anything up, let's go ahead and select our camera. Select all these values right here in our channel box editor. Let's lock them. Now if you try to move your camera on here, you'll see that it won't work. Anytime we need to change those values, we can select these and unlock selected, which there's a chance we'll need to do that later, but for right now, to make sure we don't make any silly mistakes, we're going to go ahead and lock it. Now we need to make sure that our render settings are all set up only because we're going to be doing some test rendering. So let's come up here and click your display render settings. Make sure you're using mental ray. That's the first and foremost important part. Come over here to quality. Make sure this is set to adaptive sampling. Max sample level 2. That's a good place to start. All the rest of this looks fine. Come over here to indirect lighting. We can bump this up later. This will just end up adding to our render time. We'll probably turn this on in the next tutorial, the rendering tutorial. As for right now, you just need to make sure you're under mental ray and your sampling is turned up. Okay, now we're going to start creating some lights. So let's go up here to create. Area light. And now we can just look through selected under panels. You'll be able to look right through the light. Before I start getting into this, I want to go ahead and say that lighting is an extremely, especially studio lighting, is an extremely creative process, and it changes with every single scenario that you start lighting. So you really need to use your artistic sense in this, and even within this tutorial video alone, you're going to see me try multiple things and fail, because that happens a lot. This is not premeditated in my head. This is me going into it with a fresh mind on how I can properly light this studio scenario. I'm not sure how long it's going to take, just because this is all improvisation. You'll see what I mean as we go and we do some tests and see how things look and maybe try other things. So anyways, we're looking through this area light. Let's go ahead and start with essentially setting up what would be considered our key light. This light will give the shadow to the can and give a strong amount of light that really defines the scene. If we were to go ahead and render right now with this light in this position, you would see that, well, I need to render through my camera. You can go up there to render and see we don't have much there. This is, your starting point, and this will continue to get better as we add more lights to our scene. We can come over here to the attribute editor. One thing you always want to make sure with your lights is that you change your decay rate to quadratic. This is a realistic fall off normally it's set to no decay, which means that it doesn't matter how far away the object is from the light will still hit it eventually. When it's set to quadratic, it's gonna fall off much faster and give you a lot more realistic look, although your lights need to be closer to the object. So now that this is about where I want it, we can go ahead and jump back into our perspective view. You'll see our light's pretty small. We can go and scale that up, maybe give it this kind of a shape. Let's go and bump up the intensity. This is going to be a lot of trial and error. I know that I want shadows on this particular light, so I'm going to come down here and turn on ray trace shadows. Bump these each up to 3. Okay, let's say use light shape. This is going to actually make the light more visible in the scene, make it actually have a reflective surface, almost like to where like the object is an actual bulb. Let's go and turn up our high sample limit to 8. Let's make it visible. This will make it reflect on other objects. Start at like 5 and we'll see how that works. So we'll go ahead and render again and see what happens. Alright, we need to render through camera 1. As you can see, we're still missing a lot of light. I'm going to leave this up. I'm just going to pull it over here. And I'm going to come up here and I'm going to bump this intensity up to maybe, say 50 and see how that works. Okay, that's looking better. Let's kind of pull this up a little bit maybe. There's a lot of rendering that goes into this, trial and error. Maybe push it back here, rotate it. Okay, just so I'm not covering up the words, but see now my light is in the scene, so I need to move that back. Maybe turn up the intensity some more. Let's try 150, let's get crazy. See what happens. Okay, that's not a bad starting point. Right in here, I'm going to jump into my camera view so I can see my light there, and that's how I know that's clipping. Let's jump back out, pull that up, maybe aim it a little bit more towards it. Okay, let's see how that looks. Still in the scene. Alright, let's move it back more behind the camera. See how that works. Okay, I'm going to use this as a good starting point. And I can always adjust it later, but as a lighting artist, you always expect to use lots of lights, but you know, if you can get away with using less lights, that's totally acceptable. But it's not bad to have tons of lights in your scene. Alright, so I just created another area light, and I'm gonna look through selected. Now I'm gonna create kind of a fill light. This light will just kind of fill out this other area over here and kind of just be a bigger light that kind of adds more light to our scene. Something like this. This is a good starting spot. Okay, I'm gonna kind of make this more flat, not like less angled. Pull it down. Let's make it bigger. Alright, now let's edit these settings. I can put this down and then pull it up later. Let's turn this up. Let's say start with something like 60. Quadratic. We don't want shadows. You don't want multiple shadows because with multiple shadows you'll have you'll just be able to tell, and it'll, without one key shadow, it looks kind of weird. Okay, so now we don't necessarily need to turn on use light shape right now. We'll see what happens and how this looks. Let's pull this back up and do another render. Okay, that's really bright. So let's turn that down maybe to 20 and see how that looks. Okay, that looks a lot better. See that soft glow on the can? That looks really good. Looks like it can move a little bit more to the left of the can. Let's make sure our light's not touching the ground. An easy way to rotate it around is to go ahead and use your D key and pull your axis to the center. You know, like around the center. Get it around to the middle of the can. Now when you rotate, it will rotate right around your object, or wherever you end up putting your axis. Alright, let's see how that looks. Okay, now this is looking better. Maybe we could turn up the light a little bit more and maybe make it a little bit wider. Kind of space that out. Let's come in here and make this maybe 20. Let's try 26. See how that looks. Alright, now this one looks pretty good to me. Maybe I'll take it down a little bit. So let's say, 22 or something like that. I'm gonna be satisfied with this one for right now, and I'm gonna come back to this one and maybe try to pull it this way a little bit more, and maybe try to get some more light on this part of the can. Let's go ahead and well, let's just pull it down for right now and jump in our camera, make sure it's not conflicting, and it's not. It's looking good so far. Just kind of pull it in. Still not. Okay, we're looking good. Now let's kind of pull it this way, and hopefully this doesn't put it in our scene or in our camera. Okay, it did. We need to probably pull it up a little bit. Back. Alright, let's see the difference. Now let's save this one right here. It doesn't save it on your computer, it just saves it for comparison. Okay, let's see now. Let's look at the difference. Yeah, this is more of what I want. More light. We've got more light over here. I could also probably turn up my light. So let's say turn it from 150 to maybe 170. Let's save. Render. Okay, let's see. Okay, so it's brighter, so I've got more light, which is good. Okay, now this light's looking a little bit better. Well, a big problem I just noticed, which I can't believe I didn't notice this, was a lot of the letters are being cut off here. And this could totally change our light's placement, so we need to rotate the can towards the camera. Let's jump into our camera view. We can just grab the can, but you can select your whole hierarchy if you want. Just because you keep it at the top won't be visible. Let's do something like this. See this? Now everything's visible. I should have done this at the beginning. Let's now render and see how that looks. Let's save. Alright, so now that it's more visible, this is already looking better. I could probably turn down my light over here a little bit. Looks like it's a little bright. So maybe 18. Alright, that's more what I'm looking for, just to fill that area up. Maybe even make it a little bit wider. Turn it a little bit over. Let's see how that looks. Okay, I'd added a little bit more light, so I'm gonna just bump that down to maybe 13. Okay, I'm satisfied with that light, and for right now I'm gonna be leaving it. This light's a little bit too bright, and it should probably be pulled up a little bit more maybe. It's just cutting the words out, and we need to do something about that. Let's start by moving its axis to the center. Alright, let's see how that looks when we render. Alright, that's kind of more in the right direction, but at the same time, if you see what's happening, now we're still cutting out the letters and the light's definitely visible in the scene. So let's pull it up. Let's pull it back over. There's a lot of trial and error that goes into this. Okay, this is headed more in the right direction, so let's go ahead and keep messing with this and pull it up and over. Alright, we're definitely headed in the right direction. Let's just keep moving it to where it's no longer cutting off the words. And now we're getting some specular up here, which is looking pretty nice. Okay, this light is proving frustrating. So I'm going to get this light in position. I'm going to stop the recording, get the light in position, not do anything that I won't explain. I'll get it in position and then continue the recording and explain what I did and how I came to that solution. Okay, I'm back. What I ended up doing, and it's a lot easier to problem solve when you're not recording, if you couldn't tell, was ended up bringing the slide up here, making some adjustments to its size. You can see and kind of adjust yours the way I did. The more overhead it is, you're going to get a higher up reflection. And I also turned down the turn on the shape intensity to 0.5 so it didn't have quite as strong of a highlight there. You can see what I'm talking about. Let me render this real quick. Okay, so you see what I've got here. Also, I moved, I took this and rotated a little bit around more towards the front. I wasn't quite getting as much light on the front now that I had moved my key light up top. So I rotated this more around the front. Now it's looking pretty much how I want it to look. I'm going to show you something kind of neat also that really helps. It's called IPR rendering. If you come up here to IPR render, camera 1, I can select an area where I want it to instantly update. So I'm just going to drag this across the whole render view. Now I can see the result instantly. So if I rotate this light over, instantly as soon as I let go, it knows that there was a change. I don't want that though. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to, well, I'm going to pause my IPR, put this down. I'm going to add a light back here that will just give a backlit effect. I mean, it's also known as your rim light if you're doing a 3-point light setup, which this isn't technically a 3-point light setup because that's not the aim here. Let's make another area light. Look through selected. Let's bring it back here. Alright, make sure it's not touching the ground. Might be a bit too tall. Alright. Let's turn it up. Start with something like 50. Quadratic. Use light shape. Let's see what that does. Okay, you see how it adds this line back here? This is the line of where it's lighting. The fact that it's not lighting behind itself, there's a extremely sharp edge to where it stops lighting. We don't necessarily need this light back here to cast light on the floor. This is a really handy trick. It's called the light relationship editor or something like that. I don't quite remember. We'll see in a second. But you can either go light centric or object centric. In this case, I want this object, which is the background, to just not be affected by this one light. So I'm going to say object centric. Let's go into my hierarchy here. Select the lofted surface, which is the background. Let's come up here to Window, Relationship Editors, Light Linking, Object Centric. Let's click my lofted surface right here. See, all these that are highlighted are affecting that that object. Let's turn off Area Light 3 because that's the one we just created. Just click it, and now watch. Well, I need to do a fresh IPR. Sometimes it doesn't always update. Whoa, okay. Okay, there we go. Now you see we don't have that sharp edge, and this light back here is literally not casting any light onto the ground. Okay, now that that's set up, we can let's go back to rendering so that we can have a definitive comparison for each render. Okay, so let's save this one. Put that down. Let's make this maybe bigger. Let's turn it way up, something like 200. Alright, let's render again. Alright, let's compare. Looks like there's literally no difference. Just a moment. Okay, there we go. The light wasn't close enough. Now you can see that minor edge there added. We can make that a little bit more evident. But that's essentially how a rim light works. Let's go ahead and save that one. Okay, I'm gonna kind of pull this light around. Shed some more light on the side of it. That should make a good difference. Okay. Looks like I might have added a little bit too much light, but that's headed in the right direction. I guess I'm gonna pull this back a little bit, not so strong. We also need to make sure we turn this high sample limit update on all of our lights. Okay. Alright, now this is to a point where I am pretty satisfied. I am not a lighting artist. Hopefully that's sort of obvious. I understand some concepts, but I can in no way do an extremely professional lighting setup. I don't have the knowledge. So this is a good starting point for a lighting setup, and there's a lot to learn online. But even from this, you can sit here and play with it and be a little bit more artistic. Lighting while recording was quite difficult to really be as creative as I would like to be. I would typically probably spend a lot more time on this and go a lot slower. In the next tutorial, we'll be rendering the scan, setting up for a production render, which hopefully won't take too long. I will see you all in the next tutorial. Thank you.